You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy M, where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy M.
Episode 17, You Are Born Worthy with Ashley Watson. On this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M., we talk to psychotherapist and Kundalini Yoga teacher Ashley E. Watson. She talks about her journey as a therapist with a private practice in Greenwich, Connecticut. She also talks about her life coaching practice where she works with clients virtually to help them go from point A to point B. Ashley does a great job explaining the difference between therapy and coaching and which modality to engage in and when. Ashley also shares her perspective on why we are more open to discussing mental health issues such as depression and anxiety today and how to express your feelings in a healthy way. We also explore the principles of Kundalini Yoga and why Ashley was so drawn to this practice on her life's journey. She also shares how she was able to consciously manifest her soulmate and partner Josh through meditation and creating a love basket that she surrendered to the universe. It wasn't until she changed her habits that she was able to call him into her life. Today, they offer workshops to people looking to do the same. You'll love Ashley's views on love, joy, and abundance, and how to learn how to increase your self-esteem. She also talks about how to not settle in any area of your life and why you should be unapologetic about what you desire. We talk about how important it is to believe that you are worthy and why stillness can be the antidote to reconnect with what you already know. Ashley is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anxiety and how to deal with it when it affects your daily life. Ashley also shares a few of the ideas that she'll be covering in her new upcoming book, The Good Girl's Guide to Becoming an Empowered Woman. I know that you will love our entire conversation as much as I did. With that, I remind you that you are worthy. So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. Today, I'm excited because we're going to be talking to Ashley Watson. She's a psychotherapist, empowerment coach, and Kundalini Yoga and meditation teacher. And she's on a mission to support women in releasing their fears and emotional blocks so they can live a life filled with love, joy, and abundance. So Ashley sees her clients virtually. She facilitates Kundalini group coaching programs, and she also offers in-person workshops. She loves to spend time at the beach with her husband, Josh, and cuddling with their 10-pound Shih Tzu, Holly. And Holly makes frequent visits to the Facebook Lives that Ashley is so famous for doing. So welcome to the show, Ashley.
Oh, thank you so much, Tracy. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's kind of go back in time. And I see that you went to the University of Miami and you have a bachelor's in psychology, but you're originally from Connecticut. So how did you even make your way down to Florida?
I remember I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. What happened was I remember my parents, they took me on like the school college tours, and I'm from the Northeast. So we saw about like 30 schools. We did like the Boston trip and the Pennsylvania trip and the Connecticut trip. And I saw probably about 30 schools, and I could never really fully see myself going to those colleges and envisioning myself walking from my dorm to my class in feet of snow. I could never see it. And then I applied to University of Miami on a complete whim. Once I got in, I got a scholarship. I went down to visit. It was a typical beautiful February day in Miami, 83 degrees, nice and breezy. The whole campus is built around a lake and a pool. And then I came home from that trip, and it was one of those like terrible blizzards, snowstorms where I was like literally snowed in my house for 4 days. And I was like, I think I have to go.
Exactly. Especially if you're a beach girl.
I'm a total beach girl. I totally should have been born in like Florida or California. I live for the sun in the summer. And that's something that I'm in the process of doing is manifesting moving somewhere warm. So
good.
so that's how I ended up down there.
Yeah. And then I guess what I know, I have friends that are social workers and psychotherapists, and I know that a big part of really getting into that field, you do have to get your master's in social work. And so you went to NYU and you did
Mhm.
that. Were you working at the time or were you full-time
So
student?
so I went straight through. So I graduated. So I've known since I was 13 years old that I wanted to be a therapist and I wanted to help people and particularly help women. I've known that since I was 13, and so I didn't know exactly what that meant. I didn't know necessarily the word therapist, or I didn't know all of that, but I knew that I wanted to help people by talking to them. And so eventually it became becoming a therapist. So because I knew that, I went straight through school. So once I graduated from college, or towards the end of my senior year of college, I applied for graduate school, and I got into NYU's master's program, which is a really good program. And so I came back Northeast, and I went straight through school. I wasn't working at the time, because the way that social work school works is you go to class 1 or 2 days a week, and you have an internship 3 days a week. So there wasn't a ton of time to work. So I just went straight through and then got my
Right.
first job after.
Yeah, and then that's where you get your clinical experience, right? And you really learn what
Yeah.
it's like to be in the field. And
hmm
and you've got your own private practice now, right?
Yep. So I have a private practice in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I also see like life coaching clients virtually,
Hmm.
online, all over the world. So it's really great. I get kind of the best of both.
Right, right. So when you think about, when I think about psychotherapy and life coaching, I think it's two different things.
hmm
And so, if you're a life coach, you're not really qualified to be a psychotherapist, and you really should, if someone's in real trouble, you really at some point need to refer them to a trained psychotherapist.
hmm
Correct? And then,
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. You should never pretend to be a therapist or a psychiatrist or somebody if somebody is really struggling, or is in really, in a dark place. You should always refer to somebody, who's a professional or who has been in school and has had that experience. Absolutely.
right, right. But then there are some people that don't need a psychotherapist and they really just need a life coach. They really need somebody to help as a support system, correct?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So I think, for me, I've been a psychotherapist for 10 years. I've worked at all levels of care. I've worked on an inpatient detox unit. And it was actually a dual diagnosis unit. So most people, about 80% of the unit was detoxing from drugs or alcohol and had some sort of mental illness, anxiety, depression, bipolar. I've worked at outpatient mental health clinics. I've worked in rehabs. Like I've worked at all, and then I've also worked in private practice. So I've worked in all different levels of care, and I also do coaching. And I think like one of the biggest differences, if somebody is really struggling with any sort of mental health issue, you really would want to see somebody who's a professional, who's seen it, who has experienced it, who has who is grounded in sort of the traditions and the methodologies of therapy and like how it works. But I think, what's great about coaching is kind of takes in the here and now, and it's like, you're here now, like, where do you want to go and how do we take steps there? But I think that's where sometimes coaching can miss is sometimes the old stuff and the patterns and the family history and all of stuff, and how all of that gets I mean, I know we're seeing each other, I'm using all my hands, and people aren't going to be able to see that, but that's okay. But sometimes coaching can sort of miss the history and the dynamics of families and family of origin work, and how people came to be how they are right now, and how to untangle that stuff in order to move forward. And I think, for me, speaking for myself, I think that's what makes me a very unique coach, is that I have this ability and I have this framework and I have this decade of experience being able to look at somebody from a very large perspective, and to help them untangle the knot so that they can move forward in their life and trajectory. And also in that way, maybe be able to handle somebody who has struggled maybe a little bit more in their mental health issues than maybe just a coach who has never been to any sort of training, because there is no title protection with coaching, which I think can be really cool because anybody can do it, and also at times can not be so good for certain people. Certain people may be misled by what their coach has or has not experienced.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So, and I know you have like a particular passion around helping women, so in the mental health space, you know, there's such a stigma, or always has been such a stigma about having mental health issues, whether it be anxiety or depression. And, with the advent of social media, so many more people do have it. Or
Yeah.
has it always been out there and we just didn't talk about it, or weren't open to getting help for it, or knowing that there's resources out there? So there's definitely like this seismic shift I see happening.
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing that's happening. And it was like one of those things where, I mean, we're just coming off of the last couple of weeks. I don't know when this is going to air, but where Kate Spade recently committed suicide, Anthony Bourdain recently committed suicide. And so we're just coming off of this sort of influx and seismic shift of really being able to talk about mental health issues. The reality is, and this is something that I talk about a lot, is that I remember working with a mentor of mine or reading an article, I can't quite remember, and they said that everyone at some point in their life will be able to be diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Just because we go through these big life transitions, we have family members that die, we move, we go through these we lose jobs and are depressed. Like, we go through these big, huge life changes that rock our worlds, right? And at some point, everybody, or probably 99.9% of people, will know what it's like to experience depression, to experience anxiety on some level. But yet we even before Instagram was around, we all had this feeling that like we had to project what it was like that we were these perfect people that knew exactly what was going on, knew exactly what was happening, and that, our life is great and blah, 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 blah. And yet on the inside of all of us, we're all struggling with challenges. And because the thing is we're humans and we're meant to evolve. We're not meant to be perfect right when we come out of the womb. We are perfect in many ways, but at the same time, we go through these shifts and these experiences in life that help to crack us open to become even more of who we are. And sometimes in that cracking open, it can be really scary. It can be really fearful. It can be really sad. And, but it's in those moments oftentimes where we really find the strength of our character and who we are and what we're supposed to be doing here on this planet at this moment. And I think what's been so great about this sort of influx of mental health concerns is that, realizing like we're all pretty much the same. And one of the things I talked about in my recent Facebook Lives about Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain is that most people at some point in their life, if they don't actively think about suicide, they will have thoughts like, I really wish I wasn't here anymore. Or, I wish I were dead, right? Why can't this be over? Right? We'll have these thoughts, we don't label them as, I'm using air quotes, nobody can see them, it's a podcast, but I mean, we have these labels of suicide and, that it's this really big, scary thing. And it is this really, really big, scary thing. But so many of us have the little components of the big, scary thing. And I think that if we can start having these conversations and being more open about how it is we truly feel and what is our truth in that moment, then we can stop, the labels of, mental health, which just sounds like you're sick in your head, which is so not the case at all. The reality is actually you're normal.
Right.
But like what we want you to do is to be able to express your feelings, whatever they may be, in a healthy way, so that you can not feel so alone. And in that not feeling so alone, you can actually receive the help that you need to feel better and to do better in your life, which is what we all want to do.
Right. Right. So how much of learning through Kundalini has helped you as you've been like working with your clients? And first, you're probably gonna have to explain to people who may not know what Kundalini is. And I just kind of want to know like why you were drawn to that. So talk a little bit about Kundalini.
So Kundalini Yoga is this really beautiful, it's a different type of yoga. There's many different types of yoga, and Kundalini Yoga is one of them. And I teach the Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan. And So Kundalini Yoga, I also practice other different types of yoga, and Kundalini Yoga, I consider it like the yoga for energy. Like you typically in Kundalini Yoga exercises, you're not typically doing, like triangle pose and hold for 5 breaths and then switch to the other side. There are all these different postures and movements that are geared towards rebuilding, restructuring, rewiring your nervous system so that you can have a greater capacity for stress and for life in general. Because the greater capacity that we have for the things that bother us, the greater we could actually live out our life to the fullest, because things are just going to happen in life that are going to drag you down, as I was just saying before when talking about mental health. And so what happened for me on my Kundalini journey and how that all started was that, so I took Spirit Junkie Masterclass with you and Gabby Bernstein in 2015. And I maybe heard about Kundalini, in passing, but not really at the same time. And and Gabby, I didn't really know that much about Gabby before I went to Spirit Junkie Masterclass. In the Masterclass and in a lot of her workshops, she plays a lot of Kundalini music. And Kundalini music and Kundalini Yoga, there's a lot of music and meditation and mantras, and it's really beautiful and methodical, and it's totally unlike any other yoga class I've ever been to. And so anyway, so she plays this Kundalini music, and the first time that I hear it, everybody has their hands in prayer pose, and they're singing and they're crying and they're having this experience, and I'm kind of looking around like, okay. This is weird. Okay, whatever. Everybody's having their own experience, and I'm just, being kind of, and everybody knows the words. I don't know the words because I don't know Gabby. I don't know Kundalini. I don't know anything. And so
I had the same experience.
You had the same experience? Okay.
I did.
That's so funny. And I'm just kind of looking around, and everybody's crying and having an experience. I'm like, okay. And then, and then we just go on to the next, we learn. And then the next day she plays the same song again. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I just start bawling. I just start crying, and I'm so moved by the words that are not in English. I'm so moved by the words and the power and the room and all of it. Just that started my love with Kundalini. I was like, wow, this music can produce this emotion for me. Like, that's really cool. And so that was my first real start to finding out about Kundalini Yoga. And then I did some of, so Gabby, talks about some of the meditations, and at the time I was working at a day job and I had a private practice, and my dream was really to go into my private practice and really build up my business online. But I just wasn't there yet. And so there's Kundalini mantras for Kundalini mantras for manifestation, and a Kundalini meditation for prosperity. And I started doing those meditations, like maybe not every day, but fairly regularly. And within a year actually almost to the day, from when I went to Spirit Junkie Masterclass and never heard of Kundalini Yoga, to the following year is when I left my day job.
Wow.
Yeah, because I built up my private practice enough that I was able to make the transition successfully, which is now over 2 years ago. And I was like, and I would see when I would do it, how my life would just change. And it was really pretty dramatic. And so I was like, I really have to learn more about this. And then I started exploring more about it. And what I love about Kundalini Yoga, the whole thing's really amazing, but I specifically really love the meditations because, like I was saying before, there's meditations and what's called kriyas, which is a set of exercises. And they're meditations and kriyas for specific things. So there's the meditation for manifestation. There's a meditation for prosperity. There's meditation for a calm heart. There's meditation to clear karma. Like, you can go and you can pick through like all these different meditations and like just work on yourself and what you feel like you need to work on and things like that. And I thought that was so cool that, it's not just that, like, like you're not just sitting there in silence. Like I've tried to have my own meditation practice for a long time, and I would really, really struggle sitting in silence for like 10 minutes. And like, I remember when I first got to 10 minutes, I thought like should throw myself a party because it was like a
Right.
miracle. But with Kundalini Yoga and the meditations, there's hand gestures. Your eyes might be doing something different. You could be having a different breathing. You could be chanting a mantra. You could be listening to music. And so there was something for a little bit. So instead of just listening to the silence, there was something for my ADD brain to attach to, which made the meditation much more feasible for me. And then on top of all of that, it works. So that's how I really started getting involved in Kundalini Yoga. And then I wanted to learn more about it. So I became a Kundalini Yoga teacher about a year ago. And I love it because like I said, I love how there's specific meditations for specific things. And then I get to share that with my clients. If I feel like they're struggling with something, do this meditation. They're like, okay. And then they go and they do, and they feel better, or whatever the need is released. And so it's really, really great.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and I know, I think I read, I don't know if it was like a Facebook post or whatever, where you talked about how you were able to manifest your soulmate.
Yes, my
And
husband.
yes, so talk a little bit about that, because I guess you guide your clients through that as
Yes, yes,
well.
yes, yes. So my husband and I, we have an online course, and we've done a group coaching program and we're going to be doing a workshop and all that stuff. So come follow me, come follow us. If you're interested in manifesting your soulmate. So my husband, Josh, who you may or may not know, I don't know, but my husband, before we met, he's been meditating and doing yoga since he was 14 years old. And so when we met, he had a very solid meditation practice, and he practiced yoga every single day. And I didn't. It's usually the other way around, where the girl gets her husband or boyfriend to get
Yeah.
into it. But this one, but I was very open. I had done yoga before, and I had meditated before, and I liked that stuff. And, I was interested in astrology, but I never really knew or understood that there was this whole world of spirituality out there, and the law of attraction. And like, I didn't know about it. Like, it was like I knew there was like a little doorway, but I never knew what was behind the wall. And so he kind of got me into that. But how I manifested my soulmate my point is that when I was saying that, was I didn't really know at the time that I was consciously manifesting. So, but I did all of the things that one would do. And then when looking back, and Josh, actually, we both did the same process. He knew he was manifesting. I just didn't. And so how I manifested him was funny. I had a mentor at the time who is a spiritual psychiatrist, and she would come and this was at my day job, and she would come and be like, Ashley, why don't you have a boyfriend? Why don't you have a boyfriend? And you're so beautiful. You're so sweet. Like, why don't you have a boyfriend? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And she's like, well, you're going to come over to my house, and we're going to make you a love basket. And so I go over to her house one day, and, she has her office in her house, and she has all these essential oils and angels and pictures of ancient masters in her office. And so we go there and we meditate, and we put all of the attributes that I want in a partner in this metaphorical love basket that's between us, tall, dark, and handsome, and easy last name, and understands my relationship with my family, and loves dogs, all of the things, and is kind, compassionate, and put all of the things into the basket. And then we surrendered it to the gods and goddesses and asked them to, find my husband and all of this good stuff. And so I would periodically, and then afterwards I wrote down my list on my computer in a document entitled Future Husband. And and I would look at it, and I would feel what it would feel like to have this person in my life. And then And then at a certain point, it came to me, you know, that I wanted all of these things in a partner. And some of the things that I wanted were things that I was not doing in my life. Like I wanted somebody who was interested in yoga. I wanted somebody who was meditate. I wanted somebody who was exercising and cared about their body. I wanted somebody who would eat healthy and do all that stuff. I wanted somebody who liked to read at night. I don't know where that came from, but that was something that I wanted. And because I wanted somebody who was smart and was interested in continuing to grow their, you know, to grow their mind. And so anyway, so all of a sudden, you know, I was looking at this list and I was like, you know what, I'm not really exercising or meditating or doing yoga. I'm not really doing any of this. So how can I expect to call somebody in? So I was already like thinking about the law of attraction, but I didn't know it at the time. So I was like, how can I expect to bring this person into my life when I'm not doing the things? So I started waking up early in the morning and I started meditating and doing yoga and exercising and doing all the things. And I, you know, even though I wasn't a huge reader at the time, I started reading something at night before I went to bed. And, you know, several months later, what happened was my dad was in the hospital, and he had been in the hospital for about 4 months or so at the time. And at the time he wasn't doing that well. I can't remember. He had many like times where he was doing okay and he was doing not so well. And anyway, it was a very, very complex time in my life. And I remember it was Valentine's Day. And I was out to dinner with my mom. We just left my dad at the hospital. And like, you know, it was one of those moments where like, you know, you see everybody out on like a date and there I was like 26 years old with my mom out to dinner on Valentine's Day. And I was like so embarrassed and frustrated and like confused, and how did my life get like this? And I know I'm not supposed to be like this. And that night so I've been doing all this other work, but then there was this one moment, and that night when we went back, we were actually staying in a hotel, but at the time, because the hospital was far from our home, but so we went back to the hotel at night, and I just like was talking to God, was talking to the universe. I was like, God, universe, like whoever's out there, like, please show me the gift of love. Like I'm so ready. I so desire this relationship. And please, 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 like, I don't want to be alone anymore. Like I'm doing the work. I want to find the love of my life, you know? And 2 weeks later we met.
Of course you did.
2 weeks later we met. It was funny because, so as I mentioned, I was actually far from my home. I was about 45 minutes from my home, and living in a hotel. And Josh, my husband, ironically, he actually lived in that town. And
Wow.
so it was so interesting. So we met online. We met on Match, because we met before, you know, the Tinders and the Bumbles and everything else. So we met on Match.com, and it was so funny. So my Match address or whatever, you know, hometown or whatever it was where I was living. And he's like, you know, we talked on the phone for 3 hours when we first, you know, connected. And he's like, you know, I really want to meet you. You know, I'm happy to come down and see you. And I was like, yeah, you know, I think I'm going to be in your area actually this weekend. So like, we could just go out to dinner there. And so, anyway, so that's how it ended up happening.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. So, how can people find you?
So people can find me by going to www.ashleyewatson.com, or they can find me on Instagram at I am Ashley Watson.
Great. Great. So, you know, in your private practice, do you find that there are women that don't know how to receive love, joy, and abundance for a variety of reasons, and you've got to help them work through their blocks?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know, I think as women, we are trained to be these givers and these lovers and these caretakers. And it can be, not always, but can be such a challenge to receive the love that you so generously give. And and it's really comes back to this feeling of worthiness, of am I worthy of the love? Am I worthy of the joy? Am I worthy of the abundance? I think a lot of us, we know in our heads that we're worthy of it, and we know that we should have it, and we know that there's no real reason why we shouldn't, but yet in our hearts, because of maybe past traumas, or your upbringing, or maybe you were bullied, or there was a mean teacher, we all have these kind of crazy experiences that we felt like, or were made to feel like, or were disconnected from our worth. And suddenly we take on the fact that somebody else doesn't think that we're worthy enough for love, or we're worthy enough of abundance, or we're smart enough to have the life that we desire. And so we internalize those belief systems. Sometimes we remember exactly where they came from, but sometimes we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is over time we become an adult who we crave, I think, so much to have that life that we so desperately want, and yet we're giving, and yet we're not allowing ourselves to receive. And sometimes the giving, I think, can often be in the form of anxiety a little bit, right? Because you're anxious about your kids. If you don't do this for your kids, then they're not gonna whatever. You don't do this for your husband, then he's not gonna love you. If you don't do this for your boss, then you're gonna get fired. And there's this anxious, there can oftentimes be this anxiety, but what happens within that anxiety is that also blocks our ability to receive what it is that we truly want. Because if we are these magnets for everything that we're creating, right, that anxiety is just a magnet for more anxiety. And so, and more lack, or more, self-negativity and stuff like that. And so I think that a lot of women really struggle to be able to receive. And so many women, I'm thinking about some of the women right now that are maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're out there and they're dating and they're doing all these things, and they're getting into these dating relationships where they come in here and they come into my office, or they sit on the Zoom or the Skype, and it's when they talk to me, they realize that they are how much they're settling for in the dating experience, right? And I'm 30 and I'm single, and so I should, and it's no, you should
Right.
never feel like you're settling for a partner, but that and really not allowing yourself to be unapologetic about what it is that you desire in all aspects of your life, in your relationship, with the love you have for yourself, with your career, right? Giving yourself permission. If there were no rules, what would you do?
Right.
Right. If you stopped meeting jerks, right? Who would you want to meet? Right. And
Right.
it's about, I'm thinking about this one particular client that I'm working with right now. And we can see over the course of we've only been working together about 6 weeks, but we can see over the last 6 weeks and just working together how the men that she's attracting is shifting. It's not there yet, but just the small shifts, of reconnecting with what it is she wants and what it is she knows in her mind that she's worthy with, but what she's put up with because she's had, she's had negative body image, issues. And she, over the course of the last several years, gained a lot of weight, and then she lost a lot of weight, and how that all played into what she felt like she was worthy of. And so that was a very long answer for yes.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I think it's true. It's, knowing that you are good enough and you are worthy. And, one of the books that really has been helpful for me was Louise Hay's, You Can Love Your Life.
You can heal your life.
You Can Heal Your Life. That book is phenomenal in terms of the mantras and the prayers that you can say to yourself. So I would also imagine that when people bring the stillness into their life, whether they practice Kundalini or meditation or some form of stillness that can also be really helpful to break the anxiety cycle.
Totally. And I think that it's for so many of us, we're so scared of the stillness, right? Because it's like you have this anxiety, like, or this revving, even if you're not calling it anxiety, we have this rev that we have to go, we have to do. We can't, and even like, I look at myself and sometimes like I can't be in the house by myself without the TV on, right? There's got to be some sort of noise or something going on. And like, we're doing this kind of stuff to ourselves all the time. And so being able to practice sitting in the stillness really helps us to connect with what it is we already know, or what it is that we need to release so that we can reconnect with what we already know, so that we can fully step into that empowered worthiness that we all inherently are. And I think that there's this too, is that we think, and that our culture really loves, giving to, like, you have to earn your worthiness, right? There's this underlying sort of rule, or what it seems like, that you have to earn your worthiness. Like, you're not worthy of abundance unless you're like the CEO of like some company, or you're, I'm thinking of like friends of mine who went to law school and they work 100-hour. Yes, they earn a lot of money when they get out, but they're not really, when you actually look at the amount of hours that they're working, right?
Correct.
So it's really not that much per hour. That you have to earn your worthiness in this world. And the reality is, like, you are born worthy. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And reconnecting with that knowing and that belief system will completely transform your life in all areas. Yeah,
I think some people are scared to admit that they need to do the work to get themselves back to that place.
totally.
And so if you've gone through trauma or pain or suffering, you may choose alcohol, you may choose drugs, you may choose food, like whatever the addiction may become, to stuff your pain down and to soothe yourself. And so I think you're right. We are all born worthy, and it's remembering that.
Yeah. And it's like that's one of the things I love. I love watching little kids, because they don't care. They just know they are the center of the universe. And, they see themselves at the center of the universe, and they ask for what they want. They get what they need. And, and then we tell them as they get older, like, oh, well, that's not polite, or like, you shouldn't do that. Right. Or, the good girls don't, especially we're talking about women, right? Brave girls, right? Good girls don't do that. Right. Good girls don't ask what they want. Good girls only talk when spoken to, like I'm actually in the middle of writing a book too. It's called The Good Girl's Guide to Becoming an Empowered Woman. So
Love it.
And it's really talking about this idea that we, and it's not it's our sure, it's partly maybe our parents' fault, but it's society at large, right? Like that we, and I think that as women, we've come a long way, but, just talking about this with a girlfriend of mine the other day, we haven't even been able to vote for 100 years yet.
Right.
So we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. But I think what the reality is especially for women, especially with how we've been translated in society and everything, that and for men too, this feeling that you have to earn your worth. Whereas the reality is, we're human, we're born, we're worthy. Like that's it. Like it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Our egos want to complicate it and say you're only worthy if. But you're worthy because you are. And that's
right. Right. So my finale question is always, what's the bravest thing that you've ever done, and how does it inspire you today?
Such a good question. The bravest thing I've ever done. So, let me see. The bravest thing I've ever done was, so there's a backstory to this, and the backstory is that so a lot of people. So I talk about this a little bit in on some other podcasts, but a lot of people what a lot of people don't know about me is that I've had a very challenging relationship with my parents as I've gotten older. And we got to a point when I was getting married that there was a lot of friction between us, and things were very complicated because my dad had been very sick, and I'm an only child, and there was a lot of dynamics going on. And I met my husband, or I met the man that was going to be my husband, and we were really happy and really in love and really excited to get married and to move forward in our lives. And I was very happy and excited to move forward in my life. And but my parents had some resistance around that, which I think is also very common among mothers and daughters. And some, maybe some sons, but most of my friends are girls, so I don't know about them as much. But I think it's very common for families around weddings for there to be this sort of seismic shift, right, where the daughter really becomes a woman, and there's can be very challenging dynamics, and I certainly had them, and my parents were not necessarily very supportive during that time for me, and I was very upset about it. But at the end of the day, I chose love, and I chose love. I chose myself, and I chose my future that I wanted with my husband. And I think that, for me, as somebody who always, put people before them and didn't ask for really what I wanted. And in that moment, I made the conscious decision to really make it about me and my life and what I wanted. And I chose love. And in that moment, it was a very crazy moment, but I chose love. And that was the bravest thing that I've ever done. For sure.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. And you know what? That was probably huge for you.
Oh,
I don't know
really
all
big.
the backstory, but just from what you've said, that wasn't how you were to put you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you're like,
So,
who am I to put myself first? And what am I doing? And all the kind of like self-sabotaging things that must have been going through. But then your gut and your intuition probably said, no, this is like going to be a pivot point in my life.
yeah.
And I am going to choose love, and I am going to choose my future, and I am going to put me first.
Exactly. And it was so the actual moment that it happened. So I didn't know whether or not my parents were actually coming to our wedding until they just showed up. And so that was really stressful.
I'm sure.
And then what happened was there was this moment where my mom and I, came face to face, and they were, she was asking me whether or not I wanted her to stay. And I said, I invited you, like, this is up to you now. And
Right.
It was much more dramatic than I'm saying it right now.
Right.
And I said, I invited you, like, what do you want to do? And then she sort of started kind of yelling and screaming. And I was just like, not today. This is not happening. And I just walked away and decided to move forward in my life rather than, placate their anxiety at that moment. Because if I continue to do that, I would continue to be in this framework of not putting myself or my life or my dreams first. And so I chose me and my husband and our life together in that moment.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. You have been just such a joy to talk to. And I love that you found Kundalini Yoga. I love that you're helping other women kind of step forward and teaching them how to manifest whatever it is that they desire. And then also, being there in the mental health space as a psychotherapist for the folks that really do need your help. And, you do have the training and the credentials to do, the things that need to be done when people are in a different type of situation than just beyond what a coach can offer them.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for being on today. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. This was a blast. I really appreciate you. And thank you for inviting me on. It's been really great.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.